Welcome to Unity of Charlotte, where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. I'm Reverend Pat Dre, and I'm glad that you chose to join us today on Zoom or YouTube. And this week, it's Zoom and YouTube, and next week it will be on Zoom only. Let's start today's service by sharing our statement of oneness and let that lead us into our opening prayer. So join with me in saying, there is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good omnipotence. And take a deep breath and join me in meditation. I know that God is omnipresent. It is the intelligence that resides within me. It is the very substance from which I was made, and the same substance that nourishes me. In it I live and move and have my being. This love draws together the unity of all of life in perfect harmony. And I am part of that life, and I am part of that harmony. Light radiates through me to bless all of my actions and all that I do to help and serve others, because as I serve others, it serves me as well, my purpose in this life. Divine intelligence flows through me right now. I know the truth, and I know the true state of all creation. And I know because God flows through me, it is also revealed through me. And I acknowledge that the presence of God is here, within every cell of my body. And I know within the core of my being that Spirit expresses through me now and always. I know that God is the way of peace, prosperity, and freedom. And this awareness dispels any fear, any anxiety, any injustice, any separation. I know, God, that you are the way of health, strength, vitality. And I am filled with gratitude for your gifts. And from this place of deepest gratitude, I release this knowing that it is true and done and comes into my experience. And taking a breath and letting it go, I know it is done as I have spoken. Join with me in saying, and so it is. Amen. Thank you again for being with us this morning. And welcome to you all who have joined us on Zoom. We opened the Zoom link a bit before the service so that you can greet one another. And we also leave the Zoom connection open after the service so you can talk with your friends. This is becoming a lively group, so please remain with us. For those of you that are joining us on YouTube, we invite you to subscribe to our talks and also to like Unity of Charlotte on the YouTube channel. It helps you and others to find our information on the YouTube broadcast, which is available at any time. On normal Sundays, when we're together, we have a great program for children and teens. And I'd like to mention that because when we reconvene our Sunday services live and in person, you'll want to plan to bring your children or your grandchildren along with you. And if you or anyone you know is in need of prayer, desires prayer, is growing, changing, and managing all that life brings to us, and they'd like a little boost, we're here to help. So please use our link for prayer requests. Our prayer team is always ready to join with you in holding you and your loved ones in prayer. And you can also call Unity's telephone prayer ministry, Silent Unity, any time of the day or night. Just dial 800-NOW-PRAY for a personal affirmative prayer. We've got a bunch of announcements today, so if you've got a pen handy, you may want to make note of a couple of them because we want to include you in these. On Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Reverend Jim Fuller leads an evening meditation. It's called Meditations and Spiritual Conversations. This is an outdoor gathering held in our upper parking lot, so there's plenty of space for everybody to keep social distance, but also be included in this marvelous opportunity. Do bring your own chairs, maintain social distancing, and of course, wear a mask. And we do look forward to more details on our website. This group would not meet if it rains. In 2 weeks, on Sunday, July 12th, and this is what I hope you've got your pen, your notepad, or your digital pad available. Note the date on Sunday, July 12th. We are having the long-awaited town meeting. And this is going to be a great event. You're going to want to join us. It is your opportunity to engage in a discussion, to learn more about what's happening at our church. We're busy, we're doing stuff, and it'll give you a chance to ask questions too and dialogue with your church friends. And we need lots of opportunities to dialogue. We want to keep up that connection and communication that's been so important to all of us. Now, for this town meeting, the Zoom login will be available and will be on our Unity of Charlotte website and also in our weekly newsletter. And I do like to remind you, if you're not getting the weekly newsletter, just let us know through info@Unity of Charlotte, and we'll make sure that you're getting it. Please join us on Sunday, July 12th, for our Zoom town meeting at 11:30 a.m. following our service that day. And it'll be a great event. You're not going to want to miss it, and we'll be looking for you. Thank you. Finally, on those interested in becoming members of Unity of Charlotte, we will be offering new member classes on Wednesdays, mark this down, July 15th and the 22nd at 7 p.m. So that's Wednesdays, July 15th and 22nd for the new member classes. Now, this is a two-part online class that's going to be led by Reverend Jim Fuller on Zoom. And we're so pleased that he's offered to do this for us because we know if you've been new to Charlotte and new to Unity, you're going to want to learn more about what we're about. And this is a fabulous opportunity for you to do that. Now, the classes will be offered again at 1 p.m. on Sundays, July 26th and August 2nd, the two-part class. Again, another set of classes on July 26th and August 2nd at 1 p.m. Information on the classes and the Zoom link will be included in our weekly e-newsletters. And then finally, on July 19th, another exciting offering and way to connect and be involved in a unique and wonderful discussion, the Unity Book Club. That's July 19th on Sunday. It will meet to discuss the book, The Way of Grace by Miranda McPherson. This group will meet at 1 p.m. via Zoom. So that's Sunday, July 19th after service. Details are on the calendar at unityofcharlotte.org. So lots of opportunities. Hope you made notes. Go to the website for more information or for reference. And just another reminder, next week, when we have Reverend Sally Robbins, she is on Zoom, so we don't do YouTube next week. It will be Zoom only. So thank you, and I welcome with me Reverend Jim Fuller.
Yeah, sort of. I got it. I just can't get it to speak.
Hi there. Having technology opportunities here. That's fun. Good morning. Good to see folks out here. I see some folks on YouTube, and I know we've got some folks on Zoom. And so welcome. And we've got people, okay. So, I'm Reverend Jim Fuller. I'll be the guest speaker today. And I'm going to start us off with our affirmation for June. So I'll read it, and if any of you can see it on the screen, it shows up on the screen on some of the, at least on the YouTube. The affirmation is simply this. Just listen to this and listen to the opening line, and that'll be our closing line also. It is, centered in spirit, I am healed, whole, and helpful. From a solitary personal perspective, I may feel sad, sick, isolated, or upset. But centered in spirit, I sense my shared connection with the wisdom and power of our universal source. The affirmation again, centered in spirit, I am healed, whole, and helpful. As I was preparing for meditation this week, a song from the old Unity hymnal kept jumping into my head. It seemed appropriate for this pre-4th of July Sunday. We don't usually do songs from the hymnal because they're a little dated, but some of the songs are beautiful affirmations and prayers. And so this one seemed appropriate for July 4th. And again, I apologize, I'm not a professional musician. I actually started playing guitar again when I started doing some guest speaking in churches that didn't have music. But this has a beautiful, beautiful verse, and we're going to sing it several times as I, as you, and as we. So I'll sing it the first time as I, and then we'll sing it together. And please do sing it. Well, actually, and here in the sanctuary, please do not sing it with me, okay? And please, yeah. So I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I'm free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. Listen to that again. See if you can hear that for yourself. I'm free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. Kind of feel that within yourself, I hope. Because truly speaking, spiritually speaking, we are unlimited. absolutely nothing we cannot do through the power of our minds. And we can know this for the others around us. So I want you to think of somebody in your life, somebody you know or love or care about who's struggling, maybe with a sense of limitation, maybe a health limitation or a financial limitation, some type of personal sense of limitation. And for them, the song goes, you are free. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. See if you can think of somebody else you'd like to send that thought to. Some other person in your life that you want to see unlimited, free, spirit, soul, mind, body, all the way. And for this person, you are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. Can you feel that? We are all truly unlimited in spirit, in mind. In fact, for all of us, everywhere, let's sing that again. As we are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited. Right now, right now. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited. Right now, right now. As we get ready to go into a time of silent meditation, we invite us to sing it for ourselves. I am free. I am unlimited. And we'll take that into the silence. I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free. I am unlimited. Right now. Right now. I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free. I am unlimited. Right now. Right now. I am free. I am unlimited. Right now. Just let that thought be with us in silence for a few moments. And as we feel ourselves present in that great vastness of spirit, as we feel that ocean of aliveness that is present within us, in our minds, in our thoughts, in our being, Perhaps we can connect with that awareness, that feeling that we, the truth of who we are, is absolutely unlimited. The truth of who you are, absolutely unlimited. And through our power to choose our thoughts, look where we focus our minds, to open our minds to spirit, to higher guidance, we can experience that freedom right now. Right now. Freedom from worry, freedom from doubt. Freedom from anything that seems to separate us from one another and from our source. Breathe into that. And just let these words be your words, and know for yourself, I am free, I am unlimited, there are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited, right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited, there are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited, right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited, right now. And as you're ready, I invite you to gently come back and join me. The little voice inside my head earlier this week said it wanted me to get that thought inside your heads this week. Free and unlimited right now. Right now. Well, I picked the theme because next Saturday is Independence Day. Next Friday, a lot of people get the day off if they're not already off. And we're going to be celebrating Independence Day, 4th of July. And so in advance of that, I wanted us to have an opportunity to consider what the words independence might mean to us. Of course, we know that whatever our thoughts are about something, that's going to tend to build our world, right? The thoughts we hold in our mind, primary metaphysical principle, the thoughts we hold in our minds, the things we choose to believe in, it builds our lives, it builds our life experience. One set of thoughts builds one experience. Another set of thoughts builds a different experience. Our freedom is to choose. So what are our thoughts about the idea of independence? What does it mean to be, of course, 4th of July, what does it mean to be an independent nation? And also, what does it mean to be an independent person or individual? What do you think about that? Is it, and another thought, as I was thinking about this last week, is it possible to actually be spiritually independent? I'm not sure about that. Thought I'd start us off with independence as a country, because that's what the 4th of July is about, right? 1776, our nation declares independence from England, and we become a free country, independent. Did we actually become independent? If you look at history, you'll discover that we continued to maintain all kinds of ties with Britain, trade ties, economic. I mean, people were immigrating between the two countries. We shared close ties with their government. We shared a language. We shared religions. We shared common traditions and values. So even as we claimed independence from England, we were still what I think of as very interdependent. So when I think about 4th of July, I like to remind people to think of it as our Interdependence Day. Interdependence Day. Today, of course, our interdependence extends well beyond England, right? Our world trading partners, China, Russia, Germany, the Koreas, all kinds of places. Very interdependent for trade. And when we think about all the different countries that the people that came to start this country came from, people who brought and who developed our culture, people who helped develop our country, we think of places like Italy and Ireland and Poland and Germany, China, the Scandinavian countries, the Central and South American countries, the various African countries. All these people come over and help settle and develop this country. And they bring their culture and they bring their traditions with them. And they bring those connections to those homelands. And I really see this as, very interdependent with those people, not just those people, but the places they come from. I see us as very interdependent, not independent. Of course, as small as our planet has gotten now, with world trade and economics, we're clearly interdependent on many other countries, many other groups. It's showing up a lot now as trade and commerce is being impacted by what's going on. And of course, some of these other countries we approach with a spirit of cooperation, some with a little spirit of distrust or mistrust or manipulation. But all the while, there is clearly an interdependence going on between us and them. Happy Interdependence Day. Now, growing up in America, of course, I was taught to value personal independence. Probably some of you were. Personal independence was something to be looked at. We're seeing some of that played out all around us right now, aren't we? I mean, sometimes personal independence is great. People start little businesses, people come up with great ideas and get those going, and it helps other people. That's wonderful. Sometimes independence becomes a little self-serving, I'm going to start something wonderful and I'm going to get everything I can from you. Sometimes a sense of independence becomes actually antagonistic. We're seeing some of that playing out around us. Independence is an interesting and touchy thing. And we really need to look at ourselves and what our thoughts are, because, of course, what we think and what we believe is what shows up in our lives. As a young kid, I must have given my parents fits, because they raised me to be independent, and by golly, I was going to be independent. I was quite willing to do that. I had a strong desire to set out on my own, and I did. Some of you may value a sense of independence from your family or maybe other parts of your cultural heritage. And clearly we can become independent we can at least move away from them. But it doesn't really make us independent people. I have a good friend who was a longtime Dharma teacher for Thich Nhat Hanh. Some of you have read Thich Nhat Hanh's books and heard his talks. A very well-known Buddhist monk, still alive in Vietnam. It's amazing and actually looking pretty good. In his group, in his tradition, they don't celebrate birthdays. They celebrate continuation days. Happy Continuation Day. Because in that tradition, they acknowledge that even when we're born, we're simply continuing who we've always been. And each year we continue it here together. And then, when we move on, we continue that. They acknowledge our continuation from our relatives, our ancestors, and those around us. Interestingly, the Judaism of Jesus' time also noted and acknowledged that. People were very much seen as continuations of those who had gone before them. Could there actually be some truth in that? More than we'd like to think. I think there really is, and I'll give you an example, a little story from my life. Last week was Father's Day. My dad's been gone since 2001. My dad was a great guy. He was a very good, a very kind man. But in my humble opinion, way too passive. Way too passive. The words that will always resonate in my mind from him are, "Don't upset your mother now." And my mother, who married him, I think because he was passive, also kind of held that against him. So we have this interesting little family dynamic. But Dad was great, and I had all these little thoughts about him that stayed with me all the way until 2 weeks after his death. In 2001, I was in ministry school at Unity Village, and my dad passed. I went back for the memorial service, and then about 2 weeks later, I had one of those dreams. Maybe you've had dreams like this. They are very vivid. You see things extremely clearly, and it's like you're being shown something. You are being shown something by something higher than you. In my dream, I'm going around shoring up the edge of a road that I was complaining about how it was put together. And as I'm coming around the corner, there's my dad working on the same road, dressed in his like outdoor work clothes. It's like, oh my. And I realized a lot of information came at that time, but the thing that was very clear to me was I was working on the same thing he was. I really got that sense of continuation of things that we were both trying to do together. And that was very helpful. It helped me understand that I've been misperceiving a number of things about him and about me. About me. Continuation. It's funny because if you look at my dad, and it goes on. If you look at my dad's high school picture and you look at my oldest son's high school picture, you could swap them. You wouldn't know who, well, my oldest son had longer hair. So maybe even what we think of as our personal lives aren't as disconnected. Maybe they're more interdependent than we thought. You know, Unity, and of course I also study Course in Miracles, like Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism and Islam, all remind us that we didn't create ourselves. We didn't make ourselves. We're creations of something greater. Now you can call it Jehovah or God, or you can call it Ralph if you want. I don't think it minds. But we are creations of something beyond our little self. And where does that vital life force, where does that life that's in you come from? Where do you come from? And we like that idea of being God connected. You know, we like to affirm, particularly, here we like to affirm things like, I am a spiritual being, right? I am a spiritual being. And yes, you are. You are a spiritual being. I'm a child of God, a son of God, a daughter of God. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Made of divine stuff. But sometimes our little sense of independence seems to get in the way of, at odds with our God-created nature. To what extent am I my own man? To what extent am I God's creation? To what extent am I God's creature, God's man, God's woman? Many of the great mystics throughout history struggled with that. To what extent am I mine? To what extent am I God's? And in that struggle, some of them found God at profound levels. Many great saints. So, am I really as independent as I might like to think? Or am I, as in my example of my story, sort of being divinely taught, nudged, guided in a direction? And if I am being taught and nudged and guided in a direction, am I going to cooperate with it? Or am I going to attempt to rebel in the name of some imagined independence? Independence. Course in Miracles refers to this in one place as what it calls the authority problem. The authority problem. I'll read you just a little short piece of that. The issue of authority is really the question of authorship. When you have an authority problem, it's always because you believe you are the author of yourself. It says, this is totally imagined. You then project this delusion onto others, and you perceive the situation as one in which the others are literally fighting you for your authorship. This, it says, is the fundamental error of all those who believe they have usurped the power of God, who believe they have created themselves. The belief is very frightening to them, but hardly troubles God. From this question of authorship, the Course says we get all kinds of things show up in our lives: fear, anxiety, anger, confusion. A couple weeks ago, when I was addressing the problems going on around us, I said that my understanding is that our attachment to ideas like separateness and otherness, which this week I would say would be independence and interpersonal disconnect, were the causes, our little inner beliefs. That's what's showing up all around us. Remember, the thoughts we hold, whether they're real or just in our imagination, whether they're true or whether they're not, they're going to create our experiences, yours and mine. I don't always like that. It bothers me when stuff has happened to me. It's like, oh man, I thought I had it better together than that. My life should be full of rainbows and, whatever. How come I got this stuff? A little work to do there, huh, Jim? A little work to do. So our desires, our fantasies to imagine ourself or our nation or whatever as autonomous, separate, independent, separate from our fellow creations, separate from our Creator, that produces some pretty strange stuff. And that takes me back to the initial question. What do I believe about my own independence? Am I independent from you? Or are we somehow interdependent? Am I independent from my Creator to do as I please? Or am I somehow interdependent? Am I independent from my neighbors and my family? I always like the Course in Miracles comment that, strange little ideas, probably not the most pleasant ideas, but God's not worried about those little thoughts. God is not in the least bit worried or upset by our little imaginings of separation and disconnect. While the imaginings may frighten us and create all kinds of strange things in our lives, God knows what God created. God knows what God created. And God knows only its eternal and unbroken goodness. Now, you say, oh, that's great for God. Glad God knows that. I'm dealing with all kinds of stuff here. Bottom line is, if God knows the goodness, the eternal unbroken goodness of all that God has created, and if we're part of God, we can know that too. We can see that in the people around us. We can see it in our lives. We have that capacity. All it takes is a little change of mind. Maybe a little change about our imagined ideas about independence. The more I study, the more I experience, the more I discover how little I actually know and how much there is to know, the more I begin to become very clearly aware that the idea of any kind of separateness or independence is just a little idea of the human mind, just a little temporary passing thing. Autonomy, separateness, we think it's going to give us a sense of freedom. We think maybe it'll give us a sense of personal power. For me, I can see what it's giving me in my life. Maybe I really want to look at that a little more deeply. On the other hand, if I'm willing to let go of those thoughts of separation, separateness, disconnect, what kind of good might begin showing up? If I begin to look for the connection, the interdependence, the connection with one another and with my Creator, what kind of channels for good would that open up for me? My belief is it could open up some absolutely beautiful possibilities. But again, in the name of freedom, we do have freedom to choose what we're going to think about, what we're going to focus on. Those are our choices. We are free, we are unlimited to choose what's true, or what's imagined. And we get whatever comes with the choice we make. I did a little affirmation for us this week. It's pretty simple. It's actually longer than usual. It says, I am grateful and thankful for my unbreakable connection with my one Creator and with every part of God's good creation. I am grateful and thankful for my unbreakable connection with my one Creator and with every part of God's good creation. Close your eyes and let that settle in for just a second. I am grateful and thankful for my unbreakable connection with my one Creator and with every part of God's good creation. Interconnection, interdependence, connectedness with our source, connectedness with our brothers and sisters, all of them, not just the ones we pick. This I believe to be the truth of God's creation. And as I exercise my freedom to turn my thoughts toward that truth, then God's good creation begins coming into my view, appearing in my world, blessing me, blessing my work. I am grateful and thankful for my unbreakable connection with my one Creator and with every part of God's good creation. So it is. Amen. Well, that's my thought for today as we get ready to move into Independence or maybe Interdependence Day. You get to pick. Okay, we are free to choose. At this point, we're going to move into the part of our service where we have an opportunity to share an offering. Unity of Charlotte depends on your offerings, your gifts, your tithes, if you're tithing, to continue the work we're doing here, to continue being live online, and to continue preparing for your return when we can be together in person. You can support us in a couple of ways, and I'll mention those to you. First off, you can always mail us a check. You can just send a check to the church address, 401 East Arrowwood Road, Charlotte 28217. Or you can do what I did this morning. You can just pick up your phone or go sit at your laptop and just go to unityofcharlotte.org and click on the donate link. It's easy, it's secure. Donate, give your offering that way, and you get an immediate response back, which I think is very nice. You get a little email back thanking you and acknowledging, so you know it's gone through, no questions, no wondering, did I do it right? So please do support the work we're doing here and help us keep strong so we can be ready to support you in person as well as in our other activities as we go along. Now I'm going to invite you to just mentally hold whatever you're planning to give, whatever you have given, and just to share the prosperity blessing with me. Together we would say, joyously I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Amen. And we will close with our prayer of protection. Before we do that, I will remind you that next week we will be live on Zoom. We will be on YouTube, but not until the afternoon. There will be a replay of the Zoom on YouTube in the afternoon. So if you're a YouTuber, check in later in the day and watch the service. It'll be Reverend Sally, and it'll be lovely. And then we'll be live on Zoom that morning. The following week, live on Zoom and YouTube here from the church sanctuary, and that will be followed by the town meeting. So please plan to Zoom with us and then stay around for the town meeting for 2 weeks. Check the website for other information or check your weekly email. And now, let's simply close with the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. Thank you for being with us. Have a blessed week. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, Darcy.